It's not fair for them, for me to be always sitting around with my phone and checking my blogs and Instagram or whatever. I need to give that another time. So I'll give that 1 hour later on. Because any of the dishes that I prepare, if I'm preparing without video shooting or anything, it doesn't even take half an hour.
Yeah, faffing around,
and
putting
just putting
this.
the camera.
No, the light
up
didn't
and
work.
down
No,
and exactly. You know.
Yeah.
And so all this effort comes into play as a challenge. And in addition to the challenge of going to the office, dropping your kids to school, coming back, you know, sitting a bit, then realizing what you're ready to do again for the next day. So there's a lot of pre-planning and planning that takes place.
It takes a lot of mental space, right?
Yes.
I'm like, in my head, I was like, what did I used to do?
Yeah, what exactly? What is? I was just on Netflix.
Yeah,
That's majority of our people. إنه الدنيا كانت رايقة خالص قبل كده عارفة. وممكن ننزل نطلع نروح البارك or anything like that. We could do something, but now your focus is totally different.
Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of بدون سكر, where we discuss and question social norms with no sugarcoating or filter. Today's topic is about pursuing your passion and elevating your life and maybe the lives of others, and what does that mean for us? And to discuss this, I have a guest that I recently met in a networking event. He is also corporate, so we aligned on that. Corporate, but decided to pursue cooking and chefing passion, let's call it. And he goes by the name of Chef Bezos, or Ahmad.
Absolutely, yes.
Hi.
Hi, Rozan.
Welcome to today's episode, and thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure, and absolutely, I'm absolutely and really happy to be part of this podcast. So thank you for inviting me.
Of course. Let's start with your name, because you know I'm going to ask you this.
Absolutely, yeah. So my name is Ahmad Bإسم Rifat. In the corporate world known as Ahmad Rifat, but as a chef known as Ahmad Bإسم.
So on
Chef
LinkedIn,
Bezos.
we'll find you as Ahmad Rifat.
Okay. 100%, yeah, you'll find me there. But in Instagram and social media, I'm known as Chef Bezos Ahmad Bإسم, yeah.
So why Chef Bezos?
Well, that's something that I'd call out for my son. He decided to call me Chef Bezos because he realized that I'm more of these exclusive and highly privileged chefs. I don't just cook falafel or fool, you know. No, I cook really fine dishes at home. So you're like the rich chef at home. So he related it to the real Jeff Bezos, but of course there is no comparison whatsoever.
So how did it start? Because today we want to talk about pursuing our passion. Yes. I started a podcast, you started chefing. Tell me more about what made you do this.
Well, to be honest, it has also a link to my astrological sign being a Gemini. So we tend to divert every once in a while to something. And thankfully, the thing that actually locked with me was food. So being a chef. What happened was back in 2020 during the COVID period. So everyone was pretty much staying at home. I decided to start a new thing, and that was culinary and finishing arts. So I joined the School of Culinary and Finishing Arts here in Dubai, and we sat for a 6-month course, just going through every single tiny detail in cooking, from the time you start cutting, how do you do the cutting, the different types of cuts and knives, and the understanding of the different types of cooking, the history of cooking, how it all started, how does it integrate to our daily life, and the calories, the grams of fat and protein. And so there was a lot of things that we actually went in depth into. And this kind of elevated my knowledge to understanding how can I actually put this into practice at home in my own kitchen, you know. Since then, I've grown immense passion to different types of cuisines, whether it's from Peru, Chile, all the way down to India and China and Japan and Russia, so even parts of Europe. So I've grown an understanding to the different types of dishes and methodologies of cooking. And it's amazing how you can actually sort of interpret this into your day-to-day life. You know, I don't have to eat falafel every day when I can cook something else. For instance, I'm really fond of the Indian cuisine. I love the street food that they have there, for instance. Going down to the Egyptian food, Lebanese, also in the Arab area. Here in the UAE, their local food is incredible. So not all people have this access to that kind of cuisine. So I'm trying to bring that on board and make sure that people actually kind of understand different foods and different methodologies of cooking. It's not always feta ورز or لحمة وبطاطس ورز, or like in Egyptians growing up, it's always been بفتيك ومكرونة, you know. That's
really?
that's,
Like
yeah,
together? Or that separate?
مكرونة وبفتيك لازم, you know. That's
don't
anywhere,
know.
you know.
Yeah.
Ask any Egyptian mom, that's all they do is just eat. What are you going to cook today for us, mom, for lunch? It's بفتيك and macarona. It's the easiest, especially if it's
It
a
is.
working mom.
Yes.
So you just go back home, بفتيك and macarona. That's it,
And
you
it's
know.
at scale. You can do a lot
Absolutely,
of it.
you know, and everyone will
it's
eat, and kids love it.
efficient,
Just
yeah.
some ketchup, macarona, and buftek,
Checklist.
and you're good, you know.
Was cooking something you've always wanted to do? Like, what sparked cooking specifically?
Well, that's a very good question. Actually, I was, to be honest, pre-diabetic.
Okay.
So with this diagnosis, I had to sort of take a new healthy lifestyle and new eating habits. And it's something that I thought I'd never do.
Yes.
But then I joined a few communities here and there, here in Dubai, between the Integrated Diabetes Center, and I sat with many people to understand how we can overcome this. Because type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle disease.
Yes.
So it's something that we can definitely overcome. And I managed to do that. I was a lot fatter. Maybe I'd need 2 chairs to actually be able to sit here, back then. But now I managed to take that on board. And with the culinary studies that I did, eventually I was able to take that seriously on a different note. It took me time, maybe a year and a half, to actually lose that much weight. But as long as you're
That was a lifetime.
giving it that
to get
dedication,
that weight,
exactly.
you know,
it pays off at the end.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to wear anything from Zara, you know. Back
I
in the
believe
day.
it. I know exactly what you mean. So I was diagnosed with pre-diabetes as well.
Oh.
In 2016, and I was heavy as well. And I was heavy my entire life, more like yo-yoing as
It's up and down.
yeah, you know that. And then at one point, nothing was working. خلاص, you were just gaining weight. It's a black hole in your
Meal
stomach.
plans, you know, going to diets, nothing
works.
off.
It made things worse, actually.
Yeah.
So I finally went the surgical route. I was very ashamed of it for a very long time because I said I was doing it in the easy way. You know?
Yeah. It's the easy way out. A lot of people do that.
Yeah, although
right.
it's not. It has its own
side effects.
hardship.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's so did it 2016. Now what are we? 2023. I only changed my lifestyle maybe 2-3 years ago because it's so hard to unlearn the way we eat in our society.
It is.
And you realize like you're set for life. You know.
Correct.
And if you don't change it, it's very hard to change because it's emotional. It's what your body's used to it.
Absolutely.
It's an addiction of its own way.
Yeah,
you know. And like I would never consider salad a whole meal.
It's not. That's what we misunderstood. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I wouldn't. And it was more mental than anything. It took me a very long time. So kudos to you because I feel you.
Thank you, Razan. No, seriously, and thank you for bringing that word up, mental. Because it all relates to the mental well-being of how we position ourselves in our day and society and community, whether it's at work in the office or at home with the family or being in the kitchen for me or sitting with friends. So it's all about where exactly does your mental well-being stand, you know, and what do you rely on to make sure that you're efficiently well and effectively happy to pursue your day, you know, because before when I was pre-diabetic 3-4 years ago, going to the office, I used to rely a lot about ordering food from outside. You know, I thank Talabat and Deliveroo for all that effort and work and the stuff that they're doing to us. But again, they're not touching on that healthy side until recently. They started introducing these lovely, healthy restaurants and all. So I decided, why don't I make my own food? And I'm really passionate about sous videing food. I love to sous vide food. So sous vide is a term just to say about slow cooking, but in a faster pace, you know. So you slow cook your tenderloin beef or your chicken or whatever you want to do. And it gives you that nice, juicy, firm beef, well-cooked, tender
I haven't
piece
had lunch.
Of meat, you know. Me too.
Stop it. You're making me hungry.
So I started doing my plans for the entire week with my mashed potatoes and salad. So I have my 3-course meal that I take.
And that was after you learned?
After I learned,
okay.
So that's my 3-course meal. I stopped buying food from outside. I only go outside if I'm invited to something or we have a gathering or something. So this kind of elevated my eating habits. And I used to always bring also sometimes desserts, healthy desserts to the office. So they loved it as well. And hopefully sometime soon I'll make sure you taste one of my cakes or something. Yeah. So this kind of put me at a different stand when it comes to my eating habits. Same with my family. Again, I introduced these kind of meals and dishes to the family. And in the beginning, it wasn't easy because they're used to زي ما قلت لك بفتيك ومكرونة ورز وبطاطس وكوسة ورز والحاجات دي يعني عارفة. So yeah, exactly. Everything is rice for us Arabs.
I love rice, but
everyone
so
loves
bad.
rice.
Yeah.
It is. But there are nice alternatives too.
Exactly, but we don't explore that. We don't think about it, or we do it in a diet.
Build. Exactly.
Yes.
That's what I want people to understand. There are more delicious alternatives.
Yes.
That we can put in our day-to-day course. Salad doesn't always have to be cucumber and tomato. There's a lot of salads, you know. There's a lot of things that we can embed into sauces, different cuisines, you know, that you can put into your day. It will just make you happy. Because again, touching back on mental well-being, it's part of it is food. It's what you eat. You know,
a big part of it.
You eat something to make you happy. Why would you eat something to be sad? Or you don't put salt or pepper. What's the point? You just eat sick chicken or sick beef. Because I know a lot of people. My brother is one of these people. He doesn't put anything on the meat.
But that's
not
the point.
He just eats the steak as it is. You know, I'm like, dude, you know, add some sauce. You know, make it a bit wild, spice it up.
اسمه التبهير وهالقصص ترى they're low calorie.
The herbs,
بالعكس, they make it so different.
I cannot work a steak without herbs. You know, and kudos to whoever came up with herbs in life. يعني بصراحة, it's amazing.
They did everyone a favor.
Yeah.
So where are you now? You studied and you became a chef, and now what are you doing with that? How does that look like in your daily life?
Well, to be honest, so I have my corporate life usually from 8 to 5, unless we have any meetings or events. And then family, of course, comes as a priority. Then I give my time for chefing later in the evening. So what happens is every week I introduce a new recipe or a new dish through my Instagram or YouTube and TikTok. These are the 3 platforms that I'm mainly active on. And of course, I'm active on LinkedIn, but that's my corporate professional life. And I'm kind of, what do you call it, an influencer, but on the corporate side in my own career. But again, on the chefing, it's something that I'm growing through joining this meetup agency as well. They're lovely people, you know them. They're helping me grow my network and hopefully interact with more influential people like your good self who would be actually appreciating the type of things that we do, you know. So with the introduction of new recipes, understanding the different cultural cuisines between different countries, how can this be applied to your own house kitchen? Because we don't give time to fine dining at home. Why do I have to go to Zuma or Roberto's and pay that much money when I can actually do the same dish at home? I know a lot of people feel lazy about it. They like the ambience and everything, but what if you're just sitting at home and you want to cook something nice and quick and different?
I feel at home we cut ourselves short. Is that what you say?
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
just order and it will come. You know, why should I do it myself? But there's a joy when you prepare your own food.
It's
you know, you have your own ingredients, and you don't have to be a super executive chef to actually do it yourself. Very simple steps that you can cook your own food with.
So is that your mission with Chef Bezos?
Well, yes, that's part of it. I've also started something called the Chef Bezos Academy. That's for children. Mainly, my son is one of them, and a lot of my in-laws and kids. So you're talking about 12, 15 little ones, where I teach them the ethics of being in a kitchen, because being in a kitchen requires a lot of patience.
Yes.
And kids lack that in general. So when they come into the kitchen with me, holding of a knife or cutting a fruit or a vegetable, one of the things we did was fruit kebabs. So you get these fruit kebabs, they loved it. They were astonished how they were able to actually cut a watermelon and a kiwi and a strawberry into certain shapes to actually put it in that kebab stick and start eating it, because it took them time to realize that. And they were happy. They actually learned different techniques of cutting, the parmentière from the brunoise to the different types of squares and circles. And so these are part of 101 kitchen knife skills, you know, that anyone would learn, you know. So they were very happy about that. And then we elevated that to actually making your own pasta. Pasta is nothing but eggs and flour. So mixing that together.
Like from scratch?
Yeah, from scratch. They made their own pasta and we cooked it and they actually ate it. They added their own sauce, tomato sauce, and they were happy. And they're all, 11 years old, 12 years old? So this is part of that academy that comes into the kitchen, in addition to teaching them other techniques and ethics of life. Whether we're learning a new language, like we started with Italian, so we started learning Italian together, how to count from 1 to 10 and maybe maybe the alphabets and some of the basics of the language, how to order coffee. Like one of my favorites is macchiato. So I'm like, una macchiato. So I want one macchiato. And they were like really happy. So they kept repeating that word a lot in the class. But yeah, so this Chef Bezos Academy is something I do on weekends when there's a chance for me to gather all my in-laws and everyone. I start this course and actually design a schedule that is handed to each and every kid for them to know exactly what they will be sitting for. You know, and I do it for free. Maybe soon enough I'll be charging them, but that's
for now.
Just the progress. And they love it. They actually call me. I designed a WhatsApp group for them, and that's how we interact together, so that I can make sure that they learn and practice what we actually had together. So that was more of my summer sort of initiative with those kids who are staying here and not traveling for summer break. Yeah.
About pursuing passions, what did you struggle with? Because, you know, being corporate.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you're married with kids, like how do you make sure you make enough time for yourself? How do you keep the motivation? Because I know like the podcasting takes a lot from me as well.
It does, yes.
It's a weekly thing.
Preparations and,
it's everything mentally, financially, but also being present, doing all of that. And, you know, I've said it a few times, like I have to keep motivating myself of doing it. Yeah. But what challenges do you go through?
There's a funny part to it, because every chef would be good only when they try to break out the standard recipes to their liking and their household. So what I did, I actually de-stressed myself by being in the kitchen.
Okay.
This is my first step into the kitchen. I'm actually happy when I'm inside the kitchen. So the smell of bakes in the morning with coffee and something that I prepared and the house wakes up to makes a lot of difference, you know, with me and the family. Using the right techniques and tools. I'm thankful that I had the right investment into buying, for instance, the right oven that will cater to my needs at home. Because any standard oven here in Dubai that you have built in the house, or you even bought it from Carrefour or whatever super hypermarket, is not that right oven that I'd be willing to work with. You know, you need the right oven that would cater to your exact dishes and food that you make. Because there are certain dishes that I cook below 120 degrees Celsius, and this is not available in any normal conventional oven. And you need to slow cook for hours. Certain meals that I make, I leave the oven open for 24 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you need to get that brisket well tenderized and stuff like that. So these things are not available with normal ovens. So I've put my right investment into that particular oven. It's not expensive, but again, it's your awareness of what you want to cook. You have a lot of chefs online, a lot of food bloggers here and there. There's just thousands of them, especially here in Dubai. But what would differentiate them is the way they address the food that they're eating, or how passionate you can really see they are on this particular dish or whatever they're doing in the culinary art. So what I want to thank also, who actually helped elevate this in me, was my wife. Because I can make really delicious dishes, but I can never plate them properly for it to look appetizing for your eyes to actually want to eat it. You know?
That's half of it, right?
Yes,
that's half the experience.
And I'm terrible at plating. You know, I'm not really that good. Well, everyone has to know that now. But yeah, I'm not really that good at plating. She comes in and she just manages to color it and fix a few things here and there. It looks so fancy, you know, like wow, you know. But I give you that right, delicious flavor that you're looking for, you know?
Yeah.
But the look, no, which is exactly like you said, half of buying a dish. Why would I actually want to eat that?
Yeah,
you
like
know?
when you go to Zuma and the likes, you pay
You're
for
like,
also the plating.
it looks nice. I'll take that. You know, I don't have that looks nice. I know. I'm like, it tastes nice.
It tastes
you know?
nice, I promise. Actually, you brought up a very good point. I think partners have a big part of our pursuit.
Motivating. Exactly.
How did your wife react to it when you were like, okay, I'm going to go and study this?
Well, I asked her a question. I was like, did you ever know that your husband would be passionate about cooking or being a chef? She said, I knew that from the day I married you. I'm like, what? How? You know, because it took us years, you know, and I couldn't even boil an egg before I started. Yeah, I hardly made tea or anything. I even, one time when we first got married, I tried to surprise her with a dish and a pizza, and it was a royal mess. And I had to order something from outside and just cover it up, you know. And
A for effort.
Exactly, you know. But then, definitely partners play a big role in our life.
Like before I started that podcast, I knew my podcast will always be personal. It will touch my family life, my relationship and my family both. And I remember I spoke to my husband and I spoke to my brother about it. So I'm like, listen, I'm going to start a podcast about my life.
Yeah.
you guys will be mentioned.
Exactly. Yeah.
And most likely you will hear of it, especially our background is GCC. So, it impacts reputation, what people think of you, what people will
doubt.
say, and also Ahmad's family as well,
Yeah.
all of that. So I feel like that was my first support that I got. And then throughout the running the podcast, because as I told you, it takes hours from the weekends, or it
Correct.
takes, a slot of time, even if it's an hour or two, it
Yeah.
takes time,
Regardless.
right?
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of effort.
So an investment, and he helped a lot, especially in the beginning. I had a makeshift studio at home, which was, this is why I'm here. I couldn't keep doing it. I was doing such a bad job at it. I was like, why do I look like this? Why do I sound like, what happened?
Yeah, something's not right.
So, everything was not right. So this is why I got to Potster. But he was there throughout, and I feel I could only imagine how bad it would have gone if it was a partner who isn't supportive.
Yeah.
Or wasn't understanding, or
You would have
he'd
killed
F,
it. Exactly. You would have killed it من الأول. Like, you're wasting your time or whatever. But nevertheless, he actually motivated you. Look at you today.
Thank you.
You know, mashallah. And with this effort and this support, that's where we are. Me too. I'm really thankful to my wife and the family. Because in the beginning, like, what are you doing? What are you doing in the kitchen? No, this doesn't taste really good. I don't think you should do it that way. You should do it that way. But then this constructive views and opinions that they give you with time, it starts building up into a positive habit. So you're like, in the beginning, I never accepted any negative talk about anything I baked.
Same.
Never, I'm like, you don't know anything. Stay away from it. Get out of my kitchen.
You're in defense.
Yeah, defensive and agitated and like, all right. But then later on with time, you start realizing that they're right. Why am I not listening to them? And it pays off in a certain meal or a certain dish. Even our moms, they've been doing food all their life and we never really even thank them. It's like part of their job. But then again, a mom doesn't give you that culinary experience, because if it's a 5 milligrams of salt, it is a 5 milligrams of salt. Mom can put 10 by mistake. Or,
by heart,
Yeah, by
the
20,
measurement is by heart.
It works like that. And we still eat it, But then that's what makes a difference between a true chef and a mom chef. And at the end of the day, mom chefs are always the best, But then why would you keep going to that same restaurant and eat that same meal? Because their culinary experience in designing and creating that dish is the same. Every time you go there, you taste the same dish with the same flavor that you like.
That consistency.
Exactly. And it just adds to your mental happiness, and you're just there because you love that dish. And I'm not talking about, of course, any of the junk food or anything like that. But again, I love shawarma. So shawarma, it differs from one restaurant to the other, but you know what shawarma is like at the end of the day. And then you want to eat sushi. Again, not all people do the sushi right. So these things always add up, but we don't give it attention.
Yeah.
We don't really care about, hey, there's extra wasabi, they've put more salt, the ginger is not that good, So it differs from one person to the other.
Yeah. Have you become more pickier?
Yes, very picky.
Yeah.
And even my family, they keep relying on me when I'm choosing a restaurant or something.
Oh, so much
because,
pressure.
Yeah, it is, by the way, absolutely, because I'm like, whatever you guys like, and then when I taste the food, I'm like, no, I'm just I'm happy like that. And to be honest, I've been eating at home a lot. I do my own food. And when they tell me, come on, enough eating at home, I'm like, why don't you just come over? We'll try this new dish. Like I was telling before the podcast about this Mongolian beef, and they came over and they were astonished, like, wow. Or even that Mexican hazelnut chocolate atoll dessert. They were like, this is insanely good. I also make my own ice cream at home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, different, flavors, and mainly chocolate, but you have different flavors and fusions in these flavors that I put, and it adds up a lot, So, yeah.
Then is a supper club something you'd be interested to do?
Well, a lot of people are telling me that, to explore that. I have a few chef friends who are actually doing that right now. But the effort and time you need for that, it pays off at the end of the day, but I don't have that, especially with my corporate life. And then now with the networking and the work and the family. So, yeah, not really. Maybe sometime in the future, you never know. And again, with the Chef Bezos Academy and a lot of these things here and there, I'm still not finding time to squeeze it in,
Yeah.
But there's a lot of challenges. And this is something you addressed earlier. Especially with, for instance, you being in corporate life, like you correctly mentioned, and the time you spent in preparing for a podcast and just making sure that everything is hopefully going to be as perfect as you imagine it would be. Same thing for me, because when I record a certain recipe or a certain dish that I'm making, it's a 4 or 5 hour recording. It's not
Really?
a half hour or
It
1 hour.
looks so much shorter.
It does, because you squeeze it into 1 minute, and with all the recipes and the voiceover, you know, you're there, you know. To arrive to that moment, it takes time. And, you know, you need to balance between that with your time with the family. At first, my family were like, you're so rude, you don't sit with us. You're always on your phone, you're editing on your laptop. I'm like, all right, it's going to pay off later on. Not necessarily now, but give me that space. They did. They were supportive enough. But then now I managed to understand that it's not fair for them, for me to be always sitting around with my phone and checking my blogs and Instagram or whatever. I need to give that another time. So I'll give that 1 hour later on. Because any of the dishes that I prepare, if I'm preparing without video shooting or anything, it doesn't even take half an hour.
Faffing around,
and
putting
just putting
this.
the camera.
No, the light didn't work.
Right, exactly, you know.
Yeah.
So all this effort comes into play as a challenge. And in addition to the challenge of going to the office, dropping your kids to school, coming back, you know, sitting a bit, then realizing what you're ready to do again for the next day. So there's a lot of pre-planning and planning that takes place.
It takes a lot of mental space, right?
Yes.
And I'm like, in my head, I was like, what did I used to do?
What exactly? What is? I was just on Netflix. Majority of our people, إنه الدنيا كانت رايقة خالص قبل كده، عارفة؟ وممكن ننزل نطلع نروح البارك or anything like that. We could do something, but now your focus is totally different. And I'm not willing to go back to sitting in the park just for
I was going to ask
pointless time, you know?
Do you think you'd ever stop chefing? Or do you think you'll give it less time or less importance? Or like, when is enough? That's a big question for me.
That's,
what is enough?
I don't see it stopping at all.
Yeah.
It's actually growing day by day. And I'm looking forward to actually making sure that I have the opportunity to make people really taste my food. Because right now it's between my friends, relatives, and house, and my Instagram and YouTube. So it's all online, any social media chef sort of thing. But I want to put this out to the public. I want people to actually really taste my food, because they really see the flavor and the type of food that I'm baking or cooking to their like. And I'm sure of that, because the amount of good reviews that I got from the people around is making me have the guts to hopefully do something about it, you know?
So you want to get beyond the screen.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, thank you so much for today's episode.
It's my pleasure, Razan.
Before we wrap up, what advice would you give someone pursuing any passion, knowing that they're busy? You know, we're not telling people to quit their jobs yet. Exactly.
So
what's the last message for them, or what something actually you wish someone told you before you embarked on this journey?
Well, it's never too late, regardless how old or young you are.
That's a really good one.
If you have that true passion that you see yourself doing, whether you're a director or a cameraman or whatever you're doing, even if you're driving a taxi, if you have that passion right now and you see yourself doing it, pursue it. Don't stop. Don't wait. Even if you start with anything. On my first YouTube video, if you watch it, you'll laugh your heart out. It's seriously one of the silliest things, the worst editing that anyone can ever do.
I love first attempts.
Seriously, it's hilarious. I'm looking forward to hopefully reposting that video, because right now I can't imagine myself doing it back then. You know, I was like, what was I thinking? You know, how did I do that? You know. So you will evolve, and in no time it picks up very well. If you're really passionate about it, and you see yourself really growing into it, then do it. Don't wait. Even if you're getting a lot of negative thoughts, which is negative comments from people, and this happens in anything you do. You know, people don't like the best for everyone else. You know, so you just pursue it yourself and go for it. And now is the time. You know,
that's a really good advice, because I think, and we had this conversation before, I think we put too many obstacles ahead of us, and because that's the way the brain protects you, right?
Yes.
I remember there's a colleague of mine asked me, and when she learned how to podcast, she started asking me, she was like, is it better to have small following before you start a podcast, or should you have an established following and then have a podcast? I'm like, pros and cons. You can have both. It's either or. But honestly, when I had zero following or less following, it was easy to mess up.
Correct.
You know,
but the stakes are low. Careful. You know, exactly. You're right. Yeah.
The stakes get higher. You're like, I can't mess up. And of course, we impose these things, but it gave me that freedom, because it took me. I've been doing this for 2 years now, and I think this is the season where I became more comfortable, more confident, knowing what I want. Because there's a lot of trial and error, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
You know?
It's all about trial and error. It's
Yeah.
how you cover it up, especially for us chefs, you know.
Yes.
I've accidentally put extra salt. What are you going to do, you know?
Google. Yeah, I know.
But yeah, it's...
Well, thank
it's
you
all
for
about
today.
that. It's my pleasure, Azam, Allah.
I had a great episode with you, and I hope I'm going to taste some of your dishes soon, and I'm sure people
Inshallah,
will.
أكيد. Yeah, definitely. لازم يفندم. Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us today. Let me know, what's your passion like? Are you pursuing it? Do you think there is something lingering in your in the back of your head telling you to do something, but you're making up excuses? Because most likely that's all of us. This is the sign for you to go and do it, whatever it is. Start small, start big, just go all out. See you next time. Thank you.